Hello everyone, and welcome back to Caffeinated Dragonware. I'm Lisa, and as you may or may not know, my boyfriend Stanley and I are working on a game called X's Stage Left, a mobile game where you play as a stage hog trying to stay on stage as long as possible. In this devlog, I'll be adding a character selection screen, a game over screen, and a movable spotlight that allows the player to spawn the character wherever they want. First, I wanted to add a little rope animation for when the character spawns in. I started by changing the character's spawn point to just above the stage. Then I got Stanley to create a sprite of each character with a rope around their waist. I imported these sprites and added a rope to each character. Then I adjusted the gravity to make them look like they were being lowered. I allowed the rope to ignore gravity so it can move off screen once it's detached. However, if an enemy hits the player, or if the player moved before the rope was out of sight, it would get stuck. So I had to add a delay before the first enemy spawned and disable the player's movement until the rope was gone. Problem solved. Don't question me. Last thing I did was make sure the player faced the audience when they hit the ground. Perfect! Next I worked on the basic user interface. I created a simple play button and began moving it on screen. Easier said than done, apparently. After a ton of Googling, I ended up creating a new scene for my button. I also changed the button's name a bunch of times before I knew what I wanted. I eventually decided this scene would be the game over screen. I added a simple if statement into the game that summoned the game over screen when the player is pushed off stage. So instead of seeing an empty stage, a game over screen would appear with a try again button. Now the player can restart the game when they lose. Handy! I also created a character selection screen. It featured a go button, and a choice between the brother and sister. I made each character act as a button. And, using code I wrote earlier in development, the button would let the computer know which character to spawn. Currently the arrows next to the characters are just placeholders, but at some point they'll be able to change the character's outfit. Because more DLC means more I see you. I knew what you were gonna do. You were gonna try to spawn no character and break my game. Well, I also added some validation, so the player can't just press the go button without selecting a character. With the ability to easily select a character and restart the game, it was time to continue improving the character spawn system. I decided to add a spotlight that the player can move around to choose where the character drops in at. What inspired the spotlight spawn idea was my attempt at pre-game movement, as I call it. Basically, before they start the game, a few enemies will be seen acting out a scene. When the game starts, the stage hog jumps in, disrupting the show. The problem comes up if the character lands in the middle of the stage and there's an enemy there, and well, let's just say that wouldn't be good. First, I started on allowing the spotlight to move using the touchscreen. I borrowed some code from the character's movement script, which unfortunately couldn't just be dragged and dropped in because the spotlight behaves differently. So I started playing around with the touchscreen, generating values to figure out exactly how it worked. This allowed me to modify it using a bunch of math and fancy numbers and nerdy stuff. Now, there's probably a better way to do this, but using information I gathered and good old trial and error, I converted a
1920 by 1080
resolution of my phone to the scale using in Unity.
What?
The magic equation ended up being the original value divided by 200 minus 4.9. Now this converted selection value gets used as the character's landing place. I also added a bunch of if statements so the player only spawns in 5 different places and will not break the game. This seems to be a common theme. Okay. Lastly, the spotlight had to follow the character by locating them every frame and moving to their exact position, even when they are being pushed off stage. So, this is where we are. To recap, there's a character selection screen now, the player can use a spotlight to choose where the character spawns, a rope animation plays out when they spawn, and there's a game over screen with a restart button. If you like this video, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. We upload every Saturday, so be sure not to miss us.